Trump trial, day 3 continues. We hear from Miss Carroll on direct examination, wrapping up with her attorney, Roberta Kaplan, who has been on this case for quite some time. Miss Carroll is going to also be cross-examined by Joe Tacopina, Donald Trump's lawyer. And this is an interesting situation because Joe Tacopina is also representing Trump on his criminal case out in New York, being brought by Alvin Bragg and a Manhattan DA's office. Joe Tacopina is representing Trump in this case, which is a civil case, which is really predicated on an old criminal allegation. And it's almost a preview of what Joe is going to do in the criminal trial in New York. So this is a civil case, but it's very much like a criminal case because of the conduct that is being alleged. So we'll see how Joe does here during this cross-examination and see if any of that will translate over to the Manhattan case. So we've got our trial thread, as usual, courtesy of our friend at innercitypress, which I really encourage you to follow. He's doing excellent work and making separate videos from outside the courtroom, which is well worth your time. Got to get familiar with a couple people who are going to pop up. One person is named Molly Jong-Fast. She is a podcaster and an editor with the Daily Beast. Apparently, there was a party at which George Conway attended, and that sparked some of the initial conversation around the litigation. George Conway, you're familiar with as the ex-husband to Kellyanne Conway, who is now free. Now, those are the two people who came up in the trial, as well as these individuals. And we heard about these people yesterday on day 2. But Les Moonves came in as the former CEO of CBS. He also got allegations brought against him by Miss Carroll. She said that he assaulted her, and she's also been assaulted by other people, like camp counselors and other individuals. She also brought up this guy, John Johnson, and there was a racist comment about him. He was her ex-husband. She called him a racist name, and there was a debate about whether that comment could come into trial because John Johnson, according to Ms. Carroll, also got violent with her after a comment was made his direction. And so we are seeing this pattern where there's a history of allegations against other men by E. Jean Carroll. Trump's defense team wanted to talk about this. They wanted to bring in this fact that E. Jean Carroll had said a racial epithet against John Johnson. And the judge said, no, you can't bring that in, which is why we have this marked out in red. That little bit of evidence is not going to come into court today. Very interesting thing that popped up because as we've seen, we know that many courts are perfectly okay allowing racist things to come into court, racist comments, racist videos, racist behavior, racist language and text messages. It just depends on the courtroom and really the defendant. If you're a J6 defendant, your racist comments can come in against you. If you're a Donald Trump plaintiff and Donald Trump is the plaintiff, is the defendant, and the plaintiff said something bad and racist, they keep that out of court to protect the plaintiff in order to make their case against Donald Trump persevere. In this case, the judge made the comment, no, it's a mixed race jury. Are you nuts? I'm not going to put that in here. They'll be outraged about that. It would make E. Jean Carroll's case lose or be harmed, and the judge can't see any benefit of allowing that in, so they keep it out. So that also was one thing that was kept out. The other thing that we learned about was the founder of this lawsuit. They don't want to talk about it, but it's true. Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn, a billionaire, was disclosed to have been funding this lawsuit by Roberta Kaplan to Alina Abba, Donald Trump's lawyer. That was kept out yesterday. And there were some interesting tweets that we heard about yesterday, but those didn't get brought back up. We are going to go back to Lisa Birnbach. She was a best-selling author. She was one of the 2 women that allegedly Miss Carroll sent a copy of her book to when the book about Trump was being published, and some of the people that she talked to right after the ordeal happened. Carol Martin is the other person that she talked to. She was a former CBS TV anchor, and Lisa was a best-selling author. So we've got a lot of people. We'll try to flip back and see who is who as we go through the testimony. We're going to jump around a bit, but there is another conversation about this video that came up today. The question about this ordeal involves an assault by Donald Trump in a dressing room. And it involves the R word, which he's going to drop right here. But we are asking questions about her understanding of what that word means. Here's what she said on CNN.
You don't feel like a victim?
I was not thrown on the ground and ravished, which the word rape carries so many sexual connotations. This was not sexual. It hurt.
Well, I think most people think of rape as it is a violent assault. It is not.
I think most people think of rape as being sexy.
What?
Let's take a short break.
Think of the fantasies.
Let's take a break.
We're going to take a quick break.
Yeah, cut it.
If you can stick around, we'll talk more on the
Cut
other
it.
side.
You're fascinating to talk to.
Cut it. Cut it. Cut it. Cut it. Tucker's like, cut it. The producer's like, cut it. Get to break right now. This lady's nuts.
You don't feel like a victim?
I was not thrown on the ground and ravished, which the word rape carries so many sexual connotations. This was not sexual. It hurt.
But I think most people think of rape as it is a violent assault. It is not.
I think most people think of rape as being sexy.
Let's take a short break.
Think of the fantasies.
Commercial.
We're going to take a quick break.
Commercial.
If you can stick around, we'll talk more on the other side.
You're fascinating to talk to.
Yeah, you're fascinating to listen to, lady. All right, so that is going to come back up in trial, right? Because Donald Trump and his defense team, they saw that interview and they're like, wait a minute, rape is sexy? Most people don't think about it in that way. Okay, what is going on here? We are going to go into the trial thread. Trial thread, as I mentioned, courtesy of our friend over at innercitypress. The plaintiff's team, as we go into the trial thread, they're going to try to do what's called drawing the sting. They know that this woman has a ton of bad facts that are floating out there, and they want to get it out before Trump's team gets it out. So we're going to go into the direct exam, and her lawyer, which is Miss Roberta Kaplan, is going to be back out doing the direct exam, asking questions, and going to try to talk about all the bad things and try to get it out first. Because if she can talk about it first, that's better than the defense talking about it. So she's going to try to bring it out kind of with kids' gloves before we turn it over to Joe Tacopina for our defense conversation. Trump trial, day 3. E. Jean Carroll is back on the witness stand. Judge is there, and we get started right away. Jury's entering. All rise. Please be seated. All right. Judge says, all right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry for the delay. I was working with the lawyers on something that needed to be addressed here. But Miss Carroll, you're back on the witness stand. Just a reminder, you are still under oath. Counsel? Miss Carroll's lawyer, probably Miss Kaplan, gets up and says, Miss Carroll, were you assaulted by Les Moonves, who is, as we saw, this person right here? Were you assaulted by Les Moonves? She says, yeah, I was. But he denied it. Well, if he denied it, did you sue him for defamation? No, I didn't. Well, why didn't you sue him? You're suing Trump. Why didn't you sue him? Oh, well, Les didn't defame me. Unlike Trump, who called me a scam and a Democratic operative, Moonves stayed quiet. So now we're trying to draw distinctions, right? Because she's been assaulted by another person, didn't sue him. And we know she's got a lot of biases against Donald Trump. And she's a big Democrat and Donald Trump's a Republican. So maybe this lawsuit is about something else. Maybe it's not about the assault. Maybe it's about the name calling. So the plaintiff's team, Carroll's lawyer, has to get this out now. Counsel says, Miss Carroll, who is Natasha Stoyanov? She's a People magazine reporter, and she had Trump. Trump was her beat, so she followed Trump around. Have you ever given any interviews? And Carroll says, yeah. Been on CNN, been on Lawrence O'Donnell. I've been on the Washington Post, been all over the place. I talked to everybody about this. And counsel says, Carroll, I noticed that you're coughing here. Now, I know you've got the water to your left there is fresh. The right, I'm not so sure of that one. So why don't you just stick with the left? Don't drink that water over there. She says, okay. I want to go back to your interview with Anderson Cooper. We have this as a plaintiff exhibit. So her lawyer is bringing this in to draw the sting, right? To get it out there because the defense is going to do it if they don't. Plaintiff offers 108. Mr. Tacopina, any objection, defense? No objection. They play the video, the one that we just played. And they say, wow, Miss Carroll, did you just describe rape as sexy? She says, no. They play the video again. Most people think of rape as being sexy. She says, well, what do you mean by that? Oh, she says, oh, well, I said that rape is used in our culture, like in entertainment, like in Game of Thrones and that type of stuff. There are 9 violent rapes as plot development to bring in a bigger audience. Even old movies like The Fountainhead portrayed rape on the screen. Miss Carroll, but do you believe rape is sexy, like you said on the thing? No, I don't. No, it's one of the most violent things that can happen to a woman or a man. Do you believe that what Donald Trump did to you was sexy? No. And so what did you sue Donald Trump for? She says defamation. Why'd you sue him for that? Well, he said I was in a conspiracy with the Democratic Party. He said I was trying to sell a book. He said that I was too ugly to attack. When did you think about suing him, Carroll? Well, when journalists would ask me about it, sometimes I'd give it some thought. Was there any conversation in your mind that actually crystallized this for you? She said, yeah, I had a conversation with George Conway. George Conway's this guy. George Conway former husband of Kellyanne Conway, who's much better off now. Conway, as we know, made a recommendation over to Roberta Kaplan from prior conversations. So let's see where this goes. Says, who is George Conway? Oh, he's a Republican lawyer. Pfft. Do you know his views of Donald Trump? She says, yeah, he does not like Donald Trump. Where'd you meet him? I was at a party with Erica Jong's daughter. Her name is Molly Jong-Fast. She's a respected podcaster. That's these two here. They're throwing a Trump-hating party. Conway shows up along with Molly Jong. They're hanging out, discussing whatever TDSers discuss. It says, did you file this lawsuit to make money? She said, no, definitely not. I don't care about the money. This is about getting my name back. You write for Substack, don't you? You make some money from there? Yeah, I do. And I actually provide updates on my case there. Who came to your parties? Well, everybody would come in, journalists, podcasters. Would celebrities come? Oh, yes. I like attention. There's no question about that. I definitely do like attention. But not necessarily for suing Donald Trump or for being attacked. Said I'd prefer to get attention for making, a green 3-bean salad or something. Miss Carroll, do you regret bringing this lawsuit? 5 times a day, she says. It's like I look at social media and I see the onslaught against me from YouTubers. Have people asked to make documentaries about you, Carroll? Yes. And you started filming one? Yeah. Well, why did you stop filming one? Well, this case became too important to me. Tell me about the most recent thing that you've seen about this case. She said Donald Trump tweeted that the best example of injustice was my suing him. Where'd you see that? I think I saw it on social media. And what's this? She put something up on the screen. This is his Truth Social piece. He posted it on the social media site. Is this the one where he called your case a con job, Eugene? Yes. Is this the one where he called the justice system a disgrace? Yes. Is this the one where he said, and this woman is not my type? Yes. And she's looking at the judges and she's looking at the jurors as she's saying this. Roberta Kaplan is saying, he called the justice system a disgrace? Looking at you, Your Honor. Looking at you. Wow. And then she looks at the women on the jury. Is this the tweet where he said that you're not his type? Wow. How did that impact your reputation, Carroll? I thought I was back on my feet and I thought I had garnered some readers. And then boom, he knocks me back down again. Again, I don't think she got knocked down in the first place, right? Were you surprised? I was stunned. Why? Because I'm suing him for this. Like I'm suing him for defamation and he keeps saying it. I'm also suing him for assault under the Adult Survivors Act passed by the New York State Legislature, and I had 1 year to sue. So you're suing him under a law that just got passed for adult survivors. Counsel says, did you advocate for that law? Like, did you want this law to be passed? She says, yeah. How come? Because I understand why women and some men do not come forward for years. Miss Carroll, I want to ask you about this post. After his October 12th posting, what did you experience? A wave of slime. People repeating what Donald Trump said, working for the Democrats and things like that. It's way too ugly. It's hard to wake up. Miss Carroll, what's this? And it's very somber in this courtroom, all right? It's very dramatic. A lot of dramatics, theatrics. Oh, okay. Put something else up on the screen. Miss Carroll, what's this? That's a tweet from October 12, 2022. Your Honor, the plaintiff offers 45 exhibit, it's exhibit 45, which is fun. Judge says proceed. Now, this is apparently a nasty reply. There's a D word and there's a B word in there. And it's an RSBN posting. Shout out to the Right Side Broadcasting Network. Love you guys. Shout out. Keep up the great work. Apparently from a Max account. So somebody posted a reply to their work and it has a D word and a B word. So apparently it's not even Donald Trump's tweet, right? It's just a reply. What's this one? That's another tweet. Your Honor, plaintiff offers 48. So they're getting tweets now. And offering these as evidence. What's this one? Oh, this is a reply by somebody called Ezekiel. I don't know who the hell that is. Calling Carroll a BSer in reply to a New York Daily News article. Wow. So they just surfed the internet and got some bad comments. Great. Yeah, she should, start a podcast, start a YouTube channel. A lot of fun comments. That's part of the deal. Okay. When you become a public person and you make accusations like this, people are going to say things about it, especially if it happened 28 years ago. What's this? Oh, it's another tweet from January 15th. It's another one. This one is from the TRPS, from an account, TRPS. Now, counsel says nothing further, Your Honor. So they are bringing in tweets now. I guess these are illegal. Did Trump tweet this? No. Did anybody near Trump tweet it? No. Trump had an opinion. Other people responded to the opinion. Trump should be punished for other people's responses to his statements as evidence into the jury. They introduce exhibits. What a joke. All right. So they end their testimony on that. That is our direct examination from this woman. Just amazing. So it goes on. Counsel says nothing further, Your Honor. Look at this horrendous tweets. So judge says, all right, well, is this the point you and Mr. Tacopina need some time? So it's going to go over to cross-examination now. And Kaplan says, you need a minute? Tacopina says, yeah, Your Honor, we'll take a bit of time now to save a bit more in the future. 15 minutes. I'll give you 15 minutes. Go prepare your cross-examination. All rise. All right, please be seated. Jury comes back in. We fast forward. Parties ready? Cross-examination, Mr. Tacopina. So now we have the defense, Trump's lawyer, called Mr. Tacopina, this individual right here, leading the cross-examination against E. Jean Carroll, seen here. This is the main witness of this case. This is the victim, allegedly. And Tacopina is also going to be representing, as far as we know currently, Donald Trump in his Manhattan case. So we want to see what this looks like. It's kind of a preview before the big game, like exhibition in a civil case to see how the player plays in a criminal case. Now, obviously, the Manhattan case is a very different type of criminal trial. It's a stupid business records account. This is a physical assault account, but it's a civil trial, so it's much different standards. It's not the same thing, but it's a bit of a preview. Let's see how this goes. Inner-City-Press reporting. Mr. Tacopina, floor is yours. He says, Miss Carroll, I'm going to offer into evidence Miss Carroll's, he says to the judge, I'm going to offer into evidence Miss Carroll's book subject to redactions. He says, okay, it's admitted on that basis. He holds it up. It's going in. Your book's going in. Redaction's going in. Any objections, prosecution, or plaintiff? Nope. Judge says, okay, admitted. He holds it up. He says, Miss Carroll, this story's a bit odd, right? Some parts, yeah. Your Ask E. Jean column when you were writing back in New York, that gave you some status, didn't it? She pauses, thinks. Yes, it did. And in 2019, Elle magazine, they fired you, correct? Yes. And you experienced a different life then, right? That you were just another person after that, weren't you? Well, I never felt like another person. But you told your expert witness that after you lost your job, you felt just like another person, didn't you? Yeah, you're right. Yes, I did say that. That's because status is important to you, isn't it, Miss Carroll? Status is important, yeah. And you're a Democrat, and you were in disbelief about Donald Trump, weren't you? Yeah, I felt really bad, yes. Probably talking about when he won. And you wrote a book at some point saying, what do we need men for? Right? And he's looking at the jury now, and it's more men on the jury than women. 6-3 by our count. And he looks at every one of them, just like Miss Kaplan did. What do we need men for? You wrote this? Looking at each one of them in the eye. What do we need men for? Interesting. Yeah, I wrote it. Now, you wrote in this book, supposedly, about being attacked. Not supposedly. Yeah, but you said you didn't speak up in 2016 when Trump was running because your mom was dying. Is that true? Well, that was one of the reasons. Back then, I was never going to talk. But your mother was dying, wasn't she? She was on her deathbed. She passed away in October of 2016. And so why didn't you come out before the election? I was in mourning. Her voice is breaking. Shout out to her mom. May her mom rest in peace. I was in mourning. It was not that book. Tacopina says, it was not that the book wasn't ready. You emailed an excerpt to Lori Abram, right? She says, I did. Can you show me the email? He says, sure. Yeah, it's Defense Exhibit AB. It was on June 13th, 2019. It's right here. Grab it. Recognize it? So you wrote that you thought Donald Trump in this book was trying to kill you? Is that what you said? You emailed an excerpt to Lori Abraham, and in it, you said that Trump was trying to kill you, to poison your water? Is that what you're saying? She said, that was a draft. That wasn't published. Well, I'm asking you about it right now, Miss Carroll. You wrote it, right? Yeah, I wrote it. Is that true? I hope he asked those questions. Let's see. Maybe he did and we don't have it in the transcript. But I'm asking you about it now. Now, Carroll Martin, she also has strong feelings about Donald Trump. Is that true? Carroll Martin is this woman here, former or maybe current, I'm not sure, CBS TV anchor down here, saying that she also had strong feelings about Trump, didn't she? Yeah. And she wrote to you, she sent Orange Crush called Namibia at the UN, right? Yes, she wrote me. And she wrote to you, this has to stop, right? Yeah, she did. And you indicated back to her that you'd do anything to take down Donald Trump, didn't you? Those aren't my words. But you told Carroll Martin that you had something for her, right? What was that? Oh, I don't remember. I have no idea. Something about Andy Borowitz or something like that. She said, this email is from less than 5 years ago. You don't remember what you wrote in this email? No, I can't remember it. But you remember what happened 30 years ago, 28 years ago? She says, well, I remember the attack, but this email? Gosh, I send and receive so many emails. Does the word scheme mean, what does it mean to you, the word scheme? She says, well, it carries no connotation of evil. It's just a word we use. She has colorful language and so do I. So something in the emails from Carroll Martin, they're sending messages back and forth. What does the word scheme mean? Are you guys going to enter a scheme? She says, no, nothing evil. It's just a word we use, you know. She has colorful language and so do I. It's not a scheme to do anything. But you produced this email, right? You created this? Was there any other one? Did any other person mention scheme? So I don't know. I didn't review them. So you say you have no idea what this, quote, something special that you had for Carroll Martin was? You don't have any idea what that was when you sent it to her? No, we exchanged a gift. That's all I know. And she and Miss Birnbach are your two witnesses, right? Yes. Counsel, objection. Objection sustained. We don't know if they're going to be the two witnesses, I guess. And so these are the two people they're talking about. Lisa Birnbach and Carroll Martin, CBS TV anchor, going to be the two witnesses, presumably for the plaintiff, Miss Carroll. So Tacopina's back up for cross-examination. Says, okay, Miss Carroll, you set out on a road trip to gather information for your book, to go do some research. Yeah. And you discussed it with Carroll and you discussed it with Lisa back in June. In fact, June 23rd, 2019, before Trump's running again. And you texted Miss Birnbaum that you told Megan from the New York Times about this, right? Yeah. And so you told Megan a lie, didn't you? No, I told her the truth. I hadn't heard back from Lisa and Carroll, and I assumed, and you know, the first three letters of that says to this day, I don't know if Carroll and Lisa even read the chapter, but they're your witnesses. She says, well, you'll have to ask them. So you wrote it. You never read it? She says, gosh, I was very ill. I made out a will. I made Lisa Birnbach my executor, and Lisa didn't read it because she didn't remember my password to get in to read the draft. When you said you assumed she'd read it, she says, I asked her if she read the chapter I gave her at Carmine's. I don't know if she read the chapter where I said Trump was going to poison me or not. But you supposedly spoke to them the day of the alleged attack, but they couldn't give you a specific date, right? You don't have a date and they can't give you a date, right? We can't. I wish we could give you a date. You can't even give us the year, right? Lisa believes that since she wrote about Mar-a-Lago in February, she would not have gone if I'd told her, so it must have been in 1996. She swears to that. Ms. Carroll, yesterday you said for the first time that it was a Thursday. You pulled that date out of a hat. Well, it's a Thursday. But you were never sure of the year either before that, right? Yeah. But suddenly you know the day of the week? She says, I said it out loud. But you never verbalized it before today, that day in court, right? No. And before publishing your attack story, you never made that date public, right? I was never going to. In your book, you talk about disposing of all men. Is that here? He looks at the men in the jury panel again. Disposing of all men. She says it was satire. You understand that, right? He says it comes from Jonathan Swift's A Modest Proposal. Judge chimes in. Says it comes from Jonathan Swift's A Modest Proposal, which I don't know what that is. A Modest Proposal by Jonathan Swift. It's presented in the guise of an economic treatise. And so it's a masterpiece of satire. rational deliberation and all these things. Okay, so this I don't think is really appropriate. Why is this judge chiming in on this? It comes from Jonathan Swift's A Modest Proposal. So he's giving validation, in other words, to her testimony. It's satire, you understand? Yeah, idiot Tacopina, Trump lawyer. It comes from Jonathan Swift's A Modest Proposal. You troglodyte idiot. What's he weighing in there for and supporting her? So Tacopina's like, thanks, Judge. The hell are you talking about? It's my question. Can you let me do my thing? He says, okay, in your road trip, Miss Carroll, you kept a list of the most hideous men. Was that satire? She says, no, that was dead serious. But it had a lighter moment. Men who performed something I could not perform. And the mechanic you wrote about who put your wheel on wrong. She said, yeah, that guy cost me $2,000. So this book was a book that you desperately wanted to sell, wasn't it? You were out there on the road and all these things. It says, yeah, I wanted to sell the book I was writing. And naming Donald Trump was a major element to selling your book, wasn't it? Yeah, I thought it would attract people. I was wrong. It was Harvey Weinstein's story that caused you to come forward. Is that right? Yeah, I realized we had a chance to limit the harm that was happening out there. But those women went to the police, didn't they? No, I don't know. I don't know. Is Weinstein in jail? Objection sustained. Trump's lawyer asks, Miss Carroll, you received a signing bonus when you filled this out, didn't you? She said, I have no idea what that is. A signing bonus? You don't know what a signing bonus is? He says, well, I've got a part of your deposition here. I'm just going to play a part of it. Let me know when you're ready. Okay, I'm ready. Go ahead and play it. So then they play it, and Carroll in the recording says, they may have given me a signing bonus. And he goes back to her and he goes, what about that? And she says, oh, like a baseball player. Yeah. So you gave it to the New York Mag. You gave your piece to the New York magazine. Says, well, I gave him a combination of chapters. And the judge says, okay, that's a good time to take a break. So we'll just go ahead and leave it there for a quick minute. Break until 2 p.m. And so, of course, we're sticking with Inner City Press, and we're fast forwarding right through lunch, and we come back. It's 2 p.m. We're back. The judge says, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed your delicious repast. Miss Carroll, you're still under oath. They're all wiping the French fries off their faces back here. Mr. Tacopina, you may proceed. He says, Miss Carroll, you kept the photo that you took with Donald Trump and Ivana for 2 decades, didn't you? Yeah. And that's your ex-husband, John Johnson there, who you said strangled you? And she says, yeah. And this photo is everywhere. And let's see if I can grab it and we can see it. Here it is. This is the photo that they are talking about. And you can see this is supposedly E. Jean Carroll, I guess, here. And that's John Johnson. Unless that's E. Jean Carroll. I think that's E. Jean Carroll, no? All right. One of them is there. So let's see where this line of questioning goes. And your ex-husband, John Johnson's in that picture, right? Yeah. And you kept the photo with Donald and Ivana for 2 decades? Yeah. You don't recall where the parties were hosted, though, right? No. And you don't recall what you discussed? Well, I think it was juicy, but I don't remember the topic that they were talking about in that picture. Well, when did you take the picture? I don't know, sometime between 1987 and 1996. Wow, that's a pretty big window. Okay. Yeah, like almost a 10-year window there. Could have been any time in there. Just like the rape. I don't know, sometime, 1990s. I don't know when it was. I don't know, like Nirvana era, something. I don't know, something happening. But it happened, though. Tacopina says, all right, Miss Carroll, let's go to the deposition from October. You said he waved to you on the street. You remember that? When? You said he waved to you on the street. Question, Miss Carroll, when? Answer, 1994 or 1995. You said he waved to me on the street. You said we were on different sides of the street. You say he greeted you, but hadn't seen you in 8 years. And Carroll's lawyer jumps in here and starts with objection. We get argumentative here because it's not really a question. Saying, you say he greeted you, but he hadn't seen you in 8 years. Yeah, how do you really answer that? But you could break that up into questions. So she calls him out, objection sustained. Tacopina then goes back and says, okay, so I will break this down into questions. And he starts again. Between 1987 and 1995, the judge says, hey, we can all do math here, Tacopina. Move on, which is just insane because the judge is literally cutting him off on, again, he's sort of vouching for the witness. Yeah, no, it's a treatise, obviously. We can do the math, Trump lawyer. Shut up and move on. Gosh, okay, Judge. Miss Carroll, would you agree with me that Bergdorf's is a posh facility? She says, yeah. And it's gracious? She says, that's conducive to shopping. You said it's so upscale that it refers to customers as clients. Did you say that? She says, I'm not so sure I said that. Your book didn't say that if you were at Bergdorf's that day, whether it was a revolving door or a hinge door. Did you talk about that? Revolving door or hinge door? So now I know that it was a revolving door. And you said that Donald Trump was alone, right? I believe so. And you said that nobody witnessed this interaction. And Kaplan, the judge, chimes in again. He says, it's not clear if the witness said yes or no. I would hope, Mr. Tacopina, that you phrase your questions better so we don't have to keep doing this. Okay, now Tacopina says, oh gosh, geez Louise, Judge, says, okay, you called Donald Trump one of New York's more famous men, right? Yes. But no sales attendant tried to help him. They did not. You have a memory of him saying the word lingerie? She says, as I wrote, I thought he might have said underwear. It meant the same thing. You know, the story was shaping up to be hilarious. So Trump, one of the most famous men in New York City, walks into one of the most famous bougie stores in New York. Nobody comes to help him. Place is empty. He walks around, walks right up to Carroll. Nobody knows anything about it. Says, hey, you want to try on some lingerie? It means the same thing, and she thinks the whole thing's hilarious this whole time. Did it seem like you were on the escalators for a long time? She says, yeah, it did. But the time went pretty quickly. Okay, but when you went up the elevators, you saw no one else? Well, so I was not looking for anyone. I was in an engaging conversation with Donald Trump. He says, I'm going to read to you from your testimony here today. The judge says, Mr. Tacopina, I put out an order on this. He says, Your Honor, I have it. It's right here. And the judge might have said something like, don't read from testimony. It takes too much time. And he says, no, I have it right here. It's not going to take too much time. Filling in the gaps. I don't know if that's what happened. Says, I have it. It's right here. And he goes into it. Was the testimony you gave about not seeing anyone else being truthful? Says, I was not concentrated on it. Judge cuts him off again. You have your answer. Move on. It's your story. He does. Tacopina says. So it's your story that while you were on the 6th floor, you didn't see a single person in the whole store? I did not. We went past cruisewear. Could have been bathing suits. I saw no one else. You saw no sales attendants? I didn't see any. So it's your testimony. Objection. Argumentative. The judge says you get to make a closing argument. So save it for that, right? It's your testimony is not really a question. So he does it again. So you, objection. And he says, Mr. Tacopina, in this courtroom, the ruling is the ruling. And so move on. So he goes back. He says, Ms. Carroll, Bergdorf's is more expensive than some other stores out there, like Bloomingdale's, right? No offense to Bloomingdale's. She says, yeah. And so expensive lingerie, it could be shoplifted. Carroll says, I don't know. And there was no one watching the lingerie boxes? She says, there was a bodysuit. But you said Donald Trump told you to try on the lingerie, right? Yeah. He didn't tell you to go into a changing room with him, did he? She says, I told him to try it on because it was his color. So you said, you go try it on, right? He didn't tell you to go there and do it. You told him to go there. So he didn't coerce you into the changing room. That was your idea. It was funny. He weighed about what, 225 in 1996, says Joe. She says, yeah, that's what made it funny. You know, this manly man. Okay, so he says, so let me get this straight. So that was your plan. You wanted to get this large man to put on a not so large see-through bodysuit over his suit pants? Is that what you wanted? You wanted him to go into the locker, into the changing room and just put that on? That's okay. He said, well, I don't know. I was just turning everything around. She said, actually, I had written a similar scene for Saturday Night Live and I won an Emmy for it. He said, you won an Emmy for your scene about lingerie? And she said, no, it's about his own underwear. She says, this is how comedy is born. Don't you know anything? Tacopina says, did your bit air? And she said, yeah, it aired in 1987. William Shatner played the role. She says, it was very funny. He was falling in love with himself in the mirror. You should have seen it. It was a very poetic scene. I had Shatner there. He was very confused about what he was wearing. This was very advanced for its time. Now a lot of people are wearing different clothes these days. But back then, it was novel, and I won an Emmy for it and all sorts of things. And Tacopina says, are you done, lady? Are you done here with your weird conversation? And she says, yes, I'm done now. Thank you for letting me reminisce about William Shatner in his underwear or in other people's underwear, lingerie, whatever the hell she wrote about. Carroll says, yeah, I'm done. Sorry about that. Says, so you went with him then into the dressing room. Is that true, Carroll? She says, well, I had no concept how it would turn out. Did you mention before he guided you with his arm into the locker room or changing room? Did you mention anything before? I'm not sure. You went in the room first? Yeah. And it was unlocked and you found it odd, right? Yeah, it did. And you called it, I think you said you called it an amazing happenstance. Is that right? She said, I was surprised. That's what an amazing happenstance means to you? She said, yes, I expected the joshing to continue. You didn't expect him to try it on then, right? You didn't expect him to put the lingerie on, right? No, there was no time. He slammed the door. Well, if there was no one on the floor, why did you have to go into a dressing room if you were going to, do the thing? She says, I don't know. It'd make it all the funnier. There are mirrors in a dressing room. She wanted visuals. So Tacopina says, okay, so Miss Carroll, then it's your story that the door banged closed and he pushed you up against the wall. And you say that it hurt. Is that right? Yeah. Did you think Donald Trump was trying to hurt you? I thought he'd made a mistake. It's very strange that I thought it was a mistake, though. And your story goes that you heard a bang, right? Yes. And it was only after the second push against the wall that you realized the situation was serious. Not after the first banging of your head? She says, well, it took me several seconds to process what was going on. He put his mouth against mine and then I understood. You understood and you started laughing, right? I continued laughing. That is right. Laughing is a very good weapon to calm a man down if he has any erotic intention. Now, it's your story that at some point you felt the thing. She says yes. And it's your story that he rummaged around down there in the thing for a while. And in your book, you said that he did some things. And how long did it take? She says, Tacopina asks, and it took what, 3 minutes? She said, no more than that. I didn't have a stopwatch. But you never screamed, right, Carroll? I'm not a screamer. You said that yesterday. I heard you say that. So you're being attacked, but you didn't scream. Carroll says, hey, you can beat up on me for not screaming. Tacopina, he said, I'm not beating up on you. I'm asking you questions. She says, some don't scream. He says, all this in a surprisingly empty department store. Lawyer, objection sustained. Carroll is fired up now. She said, women are told you better scream. I'm telling you, he attacked me whether I screamed or not. And she goes on this tirade. I didn't need to scream. Something screaming about this, all this. Tacopina sitting there. He goes, you need a minute? Sheesh. You done? All right. She says, no, I don't need a minute. Go on. I don't need an excuse for not screaming. Okay, but you wish you would have screamed, right? Of course I do. The more people believe me, then more people would have believed me, is what she says. Miss Carroll, did you prepare a list of answers that you'd give to questions that you might be asked? She says, what? What do you mean? What are you talking about? I prepare. Of course I prepare. Well, I want to show you an exhibit AR. They put it up. She says, oh. He said, you said, oh? Oh? What do you mean by that? Yes, I lost my glasses, but I'll try to read it. And her lawyer says, here are your glasses. Judge says, is this in evidence? The judge is objecting for the plaintiff. Is this in evidence? Tacopina says, not yet. Then we're not going to discuss it, says the judge. Sorry. Get it out. But the plaintiff says, Your Honor, I actually kind of agreed to this. Subject to redaction, I have no objection. This is amazing. So the judge is actually objecting for the plaintiff before the plaintiff is objecting. And there actually is no objection because there were redactions in the document. The judge jumped the gun on this man and he got busted because this document that Tacopina is trying to get in is agreed upon, meaning Ms. Carroll's lawyer agrees to it, but the judge wanted to keep it out anyways. And so the judge has to reverse himself. Is this in evidence? Not yet. Well, then we're not going to discuss it. And counsel says, well, I agreed to it, Judge. Subject to redaction, no objection. Fine. Then I receive it on that basis. Tacopina says, I won't know if the jury has it. Now on the screen, there's apparently something that says, why didn't you scream? ? Other quote, too much adrenaline. Carroll says, well, I mean, if I was going to lie, I would have said I screamed. I didn't scream because I didn't want to make a scene. Tacopina says, you didn't want anyone to hear and help. You said that he was attacking you. And you said that, the thing was there, but your tights were above your knees, right? The tights were above your knees, but you're having intercourse? Yes, I couldn't get my knee up. I tried to stomp his foot. Your purse was still in your hand? Yeah. But what kind of purse was it? A leather stand-up? You never hit him with your purse? Actually, I believe I did. When did you remember that? She says, always. Oh, well, that's a new fact. Well, that's interesting. You pushed him off despite your panties and your tights were above your knees? She says, yeah, tights are amazingly stretchy. And you did all of this on 4-inch heels, huh? I can dance on 4-inch heels. You dance, you understand. Tacopina says, I'm not going to respond to that one. Okay, so you got your knee up while you were being attacked, and then you walked out wearing those tights. She says, yeah, they did not come off. The tights never ripped either? I don't think so. I don't believe they did. And so it's your testimony that you don't know if Trump left any DNA evidence? Says, I don't know. I couldn't see what was going on. And you didn't seek help from anyone in the store after it happened? No, I didn't. Judge says, this is a good time for a break. Holy crap, this trial's going bad for us. Break time. They come back. Tacopina comes back and says, Ms. Carroll, why of all the people that you could have called here, why was Lisa Birnbach the one that you chose to call? This woman here, best-selling author, one of the first people contacted. Carroll says, well, she was the person that I needed. I needed to see what she would tell me. She told me to stop laughing. I think I was just slightly disoriented. I thought it was tragic. Tacopina says, no, you said it was hilarious. What story were you going to tell Lisa that you thought was hilarious? She says, well, let me rephrase that. I was hoping it was hilarious. Lisa told me exactly what I needed to hear. So she told you that you'd been attacked? I don't like that word. I don't like the word. She told you that you'd been AR'd? I don't like the word. Had it occurred to you? Had it occurred to you that you had been AR'd? She says, I just needed to tell someone the story. That's not what I asked you. Had it occurred to you that you had been AR'd? Objection sustained. And I don't know what that objection was. Asked and answered or argumentative, I don't know. But how long did this call with Ms. Birnbach last? I don't know. And she told you to go to the police? Yeah, she did. But I said, no way. I got in my car and drove him. So you sued Donald Trump then on November 4th, 2019. Is that right? Yeah. And 4 months before you sued, you say that you gave Lisa Birnbach and Carroll Martin your chapter about Donald Trump just 4 months before you sued, all this one after another? Yes. And you spoke with no one in your family about it. I would never, nor any authority. And you didn't take any medication? I'm not into medication. I may have taken an Advil. I'm not sure. Did you call in sick? No, but my area hurt. But you went into work, right? You said, yeah, that's how I do it. I just go on. Now, your friend Carroll Martin, she didn't like Donald Trump. Is that right? She was an anchor woman in New York. I didn't ask that. Carroll's counsel says, I think she asked that. Carroll says, I was afraid I'd have to face 2 tables of lawyers, and that's what happened. Tacopina says, we have the same number of lawyers here, Miss Carroll. Judge says, come on, Mr. Tacopina, move on here. Carroll says, I finally thought, I've been silent for too long. But you never told one of your doctors ever no. And there was nothing visible ever. He says, well, you can't see inside of there. But you said your head was injured. No, that was hidden by my hair. Okay, so I'm going to read from your book. What is this word here in your book? Starts with a G. She says it's gonadal. Gonadal. What does that mean? Oh, she says that means the glow of the male gonads. It's true. It happens. You said it was odd that you did not report it. Objection asked and answered. What does gonadal mean? The glow of the male gonads. Tacopina goes back. Do you have any tweets where anyone threatened you? Yes, but I deleted them. Should have been an FBI agent. But you say you opened your Twitter yesterday to see. And I opened it today too. Any threats, Carroll, today? No, of course not. No threats to Carroll because nobody endorses or wants Carroll to be threatened. No threats. They dug up a couple and they ended their entire direct testimony on those posts. But she checked today, this morning, in the middle of trial. Any threats today? No, nothing. Interesting. Ms. Carroll, did you interview with Lawrence O'Donnell in 2019? Yes. Tacopina says, let's put it on the screen. And he says, no, that's Chris Matthews. And judge says, hey, look, if you can't do this, let's move on. Apparently he's having trouble getting the video to play. And Judge Kaplan says, look, if you can't do this, let's move on. He gives him like 2 seconds. Is it playing? Nope. All right, you can't play it. Next question. Move on. So they finally, Tacopina's like, all right, we got it up, Judge. Relax. Starts to play it. Says, let's play the exhibit. O'Donnell says to Miss Carroll, would you bring an R charge against Trump? She says, no. It would be disrespectful to women on the border. Attacked around the clock. Mine was 3 minutes. I'm an adult. I've moved on. I'm happy. Holy moly. That is a heck of a clip right there. So that's on Carroll and O'Donnell. I don't think I've ever seen that one. Yeah. So that's a fun clip. No, it would be disrespectful to other women. Mine was 3 minutes. Tacopina asks, you stand by that? She says, I'd read a news story that day about women on the border and I felt bad. So that's why I said it. And you also spoke on a podcast about a camp counselor who supposedly abused you. You said he was a hideous man, number 6. His name was Cam or something like that. You remember him? Yeah. And you said Cam impacted you most of all of these attacks on you. Says, I don't know the context of this. Do we have it? No, we'll figure it out. He says, you learned Cam was arrested years later. Yeah. You realize he may have abused other objections. Carroll's counsel says, this is not a criminal case, Your Honor, and sustained. And Tacopina says, well, you haven't brought a criminal case. And the judge scolds him and says, yeah, in New York, a private citizen cannot bring a criminal case. and says, yeah, but she didn't go to the police. The judge says, move on, move on. Yeah, they couldn't bring a criminal case because she didn't go to the police, Judge. So don't give her an excuse like she can't bring a criminal case. This judge, again, is basically vouching for this witness, saying that Carroll, he's defending her. Yeah, but you didn't bring a criminal case. She can't bring a criminal case. No, that's true, but she can go talk to the police about it, and the police can bring a criminal case. She could have done that. He says, move on. So you never tried to get any video footage from Bergdorf's over the years? Objection. Can we get a time frame on this? He says then or ever. I don't care. Did you ever try to get video? Carroll's counsel says, I object to the breadth of the question. And the judge sustains it and says, she said what she said. You never tried to get videos from Bergdorf's? She said what she said. So she probably said no. So it doesn't matter. You're a writer, Miss Carroll. You wrote every day when you were married to Steve Byers. Is that true? She said, I was pitching back then, and everyone said no. But you never put any of this attack in your diary? She says, I don't write about negative things. You write about throwing a ball for a dog, right? Yeah, she says, yeah, you got my diaries in Discovery. I wrote that hundreds of times. You kept the dress that you were wearing? Says, yeah, it was beautiful. Judge says, we're done for the day. We're going to break for the day and return on Monday. And then the jury leaves and the judge comes back. This is unbelievable. The judge says, hey, Tacopina, where are you going with this? He says, Your Honor, the witness is still right here. He says, fine, if you object, that's fine. And he asks Miss Carroll to leave. He says, Miss Carroll, please leave the room. She's collecting her bag. And Carroll leaves the room. And the judge is going to scold into Tacopina. He says it would go faster if we stopped asking argumentative questions. Tacopina says, Your Honor, I've done this for some time, okay? I'm sorry if I sounded argumentative. He said more than once, more than one you've done this, and I sustained objections. And Tacopina, rightfully, absolutely right, says, I'm at a loss. I'm at a loss, Your Honor. I'm at a total loss. You sustained as to her not going to the police? Why'd you do that? He says that's as notorious a fact as the Yankees have not won the World Series in years. He says, yeah, or the Mets. He says, I'll give you that. He says, my wife does tell me I do hyperbole. But he says, and Jonathan Swift, it was a sense of irony. I commend it to you. When I looked at the cover of this lady's books, it brought back nightmares of Jonathan Swift. Tacopina says, do you remember my cousin Vinny? He says, yeah, I'm from Staten Island, of course. All right, have a great weekend. That's the end. So they're chatting about my cousin Vinny at the end of this thing. All right, you see how this goes? Oh, gosh. So Tacopina is getting obliterated by the judge, but it's all just business, and they've been doing it for a long time. Tacopina knows he's getting obliterated. The judge doesn't care. Yeah, no. You sustained her. Yeah, I sustained her not going to the police because we already know about it. Everybody knows about it. It's a notorious fact that the Yankees have not won the World Series. And Joe, look, it might be fun and funny and kind of jokey and jovial, but this is consequential. This is Trump's case. This is Tacopina getting scolded basically in front of the jury. And the judge is vouching for Miss Carroll and actually calling out objections about evidence being admitted, even though it was already agreed upon and there was no objection subject to the redactions from the plaintiff's team. It's crazy. And so Joe Tacopina is at a loss. But of course, because he has been doing this for some time, it is what it is. Okay, I'm at a loss and that's it. So that's the day 3 of the trial. And this is going to be a disaster for the Trump defense. This was objection after objection after objection sustained on behalf of the plaintiff. In fact, the judge was making objections that the plaintiff wasn't even making. So this is, it's just going to be a trip. Southern District of New York, here we are. So my friends, that is day 3. We covered some good grounds. We have Rape is Sexy, Eugene Carroll, who is out there on the examination witness stand. She'll be back there tomorrow for more cross-examination. We'll see what Judge Kaplan does about it, but holy moly, what a day. And so we'll continue to cover this trial. We'll continue into day 4. We'll be here covering every inch of it. Thank you for subscribing and joining us. And thank you for inviting somebody over here and telling them that we're covering the Trump trial, and we'll continue to do it. We would love to see you back when we get into it.